the creator of it all, the one, the Omega, the Alpha, that one sent you his message. How do you respond? How did you respond? Assalamu alaikum. I'm Moses, and today I'm talking to you all live. Just having a quick look at the comments before we continue. So, assalamu alaikum to you, all of you who have already left their messages. So, to you, Petrolia and Adarab and Ready, Inflame, everybody who watches now, who will join, hopefully, as the talk continues, and to all those who will watch this down the track, peace, greetings to all of you. So, let me return to what I said in the very beginning. How do you personally, how do you engage the Quran? And also, along with that, how do you engage with the Quran? So, for me, there's a bit of a difference in there. It's not just a semantic minor little point. Engaging something and engaging with something sometimes do go hand in hand. But to do either of them, you have to start somewhere. So, we will continue to talk about this particular topic, which is, what is the message of the Creator to you, for you, and what do you do with it? What have you done with it? So on that particular front, now there could be somebody or some of you today or down the track who could say, well, I have no relationship with the Quran, none whatsoever. And they might come up with quite a few answers or come with quite a few different reasons. In my mind, just to make things simpler, I thought, well, maybe there are three reasons, three possible reasons, variations for which you may not have any relationship with the Quran. Number one could be that you have been declared a non-Muslim. You, the listener, the person who might want to engage with the Quran, others say that you are not a Muslim. Who are those people? Well, the men of religion. They say that you are not a Muslim because you happen to have been born into a specific family who do good things with a different name. Because you're not a Muslim, the Quran is not for you. And as such, you kind of feel yourself estranged from the Quran. You've got nothing to do with it. It's a book of religion. It's a book of faith. It's a manual of what to do, what not to do, or so it's been told to you. Hence, because you have been put into a box of being a non-Muslim, you do nothing with the Quran. The second group of people, and this is possibly the group where I used to belong to as well, is those of the rational people who are born Muslims, but for whatever reason, they find the Quran strange, or they become estranged from the Quran. They've given up on the Quran because of all the internal inconsistencies, the contradictions that they have heard, they have seen, that that are in front of them in the man-made religion that is paraded as Islam. As I've always said in my Urdu videos and in English videos, what we today know as Islam is a good enough, well, it uses the same names, uses the same terms, but apart from that, there's very little in common with what that faith, what the religion says, and what the Quran, the source of the religion, allegedly says. Quran is one thing, the Islam of the Quran is one thing, and the Islam that we follow today is something different. So maybe you are from the second group. You are a born Muslim. You want to use your mind. You are somebody who wants to think. But the more you think, and the more you get yourself, enveloped into this quicksand where you got books upon books upon books of contradictions by people long dead, and there's no way to rationally unentangle yourself from it. You keep hearing about these problems. You can't find a way out. And slowly and gradually, you drift away from the Quran as well. The third group is possibly that, in my mind, of those genuine seekers. So you are those people, men, women, who want to use your mind, but you are scared because all of your lives you have heard about the benefits, the virtues of following the Salaf, following the ulama, following those before you. You believe in, well, whether you like it or not, but you follow naql. You follow others. You don't use aql. Naql is bigger. It's more important. It's got more value than using one's aql. So this leads us right back to where we started. What is your relationship with the Quran? Now, I'm going to ask a simple question, just a follow-up question from our main premise of today's discussion, which is, let's say you do engage with the Quran. You, those who are on the comments right now, So I can see Flame, Reddy, Hassan. Maybe you guys are from that group who want to engage with the Quran, and you do engage with the Quran. Well, if that is the case, I've got a couple of questions for you as well. And this is something I would like to talk about, not just myself, but with you. So for those who might be asking me shortly or watching and wondering, I would like to speak to you today. This is an English live stream. I will give a link out shortly. And if you feel up to it, yeah, feel free to join me, have a chat about all of these questions that I'm posing. These are not just rhetorical questions. These aren't just questions that one asks sitting in the ivory tower of philosophers and expects no answers back in return. This is not a thought experiment. These are things, these are questions that we grapple with on a daily basis. And I think we should talk about it. We should engage on these particular topics. So let's return to where I was. You are one of those people who engages with the Quran. Well, what does the Quran make you feel? You read the Quran, you try and engage with it in whatever form, capacity that you have. What does it make you feel? Do you find yourself scared? Does the Quran scare you? Now, this is not something I'm saying just to for hyperbole. A lot of people genuinely find the very idea of reading, interacting with the Quran daunting, overwhelming. It scares them. Are you from that group? Do you find reading the Quran, interacting with it in the same way? Or do you find the Quran inspiring? Are you one of those lucky people, the minority maybe, I dare say, who read the Quran, who try and engage with it, and you come up with as inspired? You feel hopeful. The more you read, the more you understand, the more your horizons open, and you find yourself wanting to read and interact more. You find yourself doing more and more with the Quran as time goes on. Or are you from that group who finds the Quran confusing? This is not a small group. I've been here on YouTube for about a year. Most of my videos obviously have been in Urdu/Hindi. I've spoken to a lot of people in these live talks as well, in our native languages, and people have come on, and a lot of them say they're confused. Why are they confused? Why are you confused? Is it because that you find the Quran strange, but not what you have heard as Islam, not as confusing in contrast? Why is that? Why is this something that we are finding in our midst? I can see in the comments that Hassan says that he finds the Quran is confusing, is unreadable as well. And Sister Khadija, you responded no to something, but unfortunately I don't remember the question I asked. But these are just points that I would like to talk to you with. So whether you are from these groups or you sit somewhere else in your understanding, your relationship with the Quran, I would really genuinely like to know more about. I think it's something, as I've been saying before, we need to talk about more. We should interact between ourselves more on topics like these. So let's return to this question. The Quran makes you do what? Do you find yourself pondering the Quran's message? As I said to you, this is quite a strange thing. The creator of it all, the one creator, the one who formed everything from nothing, that entity, that being, that divine, the source of all that was, is, and will be, sent you a message. Do you ponder it? Do you think over it? Do you let that message, not my words, not the writings of some people 400 years long dead, do you let this kalam, do you let these words from the divine set your worldview? Do you let this act the criterion for you? Do you use it to say, well, I'm going to utilize the principles, the guidelines, all the teachings I'm getting from this onto the world that I'm living in? Do you find the divine talking to you? Having just a quick look at the comments. Brother Besidirian, yep, I understand what you're saying. And yeah, that's an interesting point, Flame. I'll actually mark this point. And if you'd like to come and talk to us live about it, something I had not picked up on. Reading incorrect English translation boils my blood, Brother Flame says. I'll just quickly highlight it. Yeah, this is quite a common one. And yeah, come when I give the link out, and let's have a chat about this particular point as well. Why is it that we find these translations of the Quran that maybe end up putting you into one of those three different camps? Maybe you were a non-Muslim, you were intrigued and you wanted to read the Quran, but the more you read through the prism of people long dead, their translations and their fasir, you found yourself estranged from the divine. This could not be from God, you said to yourself. This could not be the Creator's word, you declared. Or you were a born Muslim, like I was. The more you read through the prism of those muddy waters, and the more you thought about it, and the more you interacted with your tariq and the riwayat, etc., the more you found yourself confused, and you said, the Quran is not for me. Yeah? Or you generally want to seek, but you're scared. You just don't know where to start. Where are you? What are the hiccups? What are the handicaps that you're facing? What stops you from pondering it, letting it become the criterion? If you are from the group of people who do wish to engage, then what is the Quran to you? And this is a question that I think, again, I would like to hear your views on. No matter where you sit in the spectrum of what is the Quran, where did it come from, whether you're Muslim, whether you're non-Muslim, according to whoever's definition, what is the Quran to you? Is it a holy object? Is it a religious symbol? Is it a symbol of a religion, a fossilized thing, a canonized entity which has got rituals and tradition and history, and there's a way that you have to dress, there are certain words that you have to add whenever you talk to some people, there's a certain group speak that you engage in whenever you talk to people of your community that by definition does not contain others. There's us versus them. Is this what the Quran is? That what the Quran is to you as well? Just an emblem, a holy object for that one particular religious group? Or are you like me, or I used to be, where the Quran was a perfumed religious artifact, literally put on the top shelf in your room, out of reach, but very well respected? You would perfume it. We would call it jazwan in Urdu. We would cover this up with beautiful cloth, beautiful velvet. We would cover over and over and over. But then in the end, we'll put this way on the top shelf because we have to be respectful to the word of God. We'll put this on the top shelf. So far, we would never touch it. We would never touch it. Are you one of those people who say the Quran, well, we can't understand that now. The only way to understand the Quran is through the understandings of people who lived in Baghdad about 1200 years ago, and you can't escape their views today. You find yourself constantly going back to that dominant view, sadly, today, where everything must be filtered through the tafsir of people long dead. You know, though whoever they were, whatever they wanted, we can't escape them. And because of that, perhaps, are you one of those who might say that the Quran to you is nothing but a book of ancient myths? It's got stories, it's got these qasas, but they've got no relevance for you. Therefore, a bygone era, nothing to do for you. Or are you one of those, and this is something quite interesting, we had a pretty interesting discussion on the last point on one of our Urdu streams, where we find a lot of people find it difficult to give up on the idea that you can't recite the Quran and not gain benefits out of it. It's a huge thing. I know the traditional accounts. You sing the Quran in Arabic, of course, whether you understand this or not, but you sing it. We don't obviously say the word sing because that's got negative connotations. We recite it. We don't even say chant it. We recite it melodiously in certain patterns, in certain styles that are specific to a particular region of the world. And when we do that, we are earning rewards. We are getting checkbooks cash. We're getting chit after chit after chit. And we're just getting those rewards just by being beautiful about the way we recite it. It's become a performance act. Are you one of those people as well? Is the Quran to you a quick way of earning quick little rewards? Every harf, every letter gives you 10 points. Are you leveling up? Are you playing a game? Is this what the Quran has become to you? Are you from that group? Just having a quick look at the comments, and then I will continue. Brother Flem, yeah, I responded to that. Brother Yusuf, today I don't think we'll talk about any particular ayat, unless somebody brings it up, and this is relevant to the topic. I'm really very keen for us just to have a chat, a light chit-chat, where we don't get into much, well, we don't stray from what we're talking about. Brother Reddy is saying it is scary. Yeah, okay, that's a very interesting point. Yes, the Quran can be scary when we're reading or understanding it through the superficial meaning, the traditional tafsir. But then the meaning changes, it becomes beautiful when you engage and understand the true deep meaning. Yeah, I mean, I call it level 1 and higher meanings. When we read something, no matter the language, no matter the book, if you remain at the level 1, Yeah, that's fine. We all have to start somewhere. I read something, they're words, they make sense. And most of the times, for a little boy, little girl, they would almost always be, they will map to real objects. You're not talking in metaphors. You're not talking in similes. There's no higher abstraction. There's nothing outside the superficial layer. Now, if you get stuck, unfortunately, in translations that can't go beyond that level, then the Quran remains to you a book for children. But the deeper you engage, the more you study, it changes, it evolves, and you continue to grow. Brother, there's another comment in there. Okay, no worries. So one of the brothers has got sore throat. And okay, one of them, Sila Beat, you are one of those who try and seek guidance through the Quran, which is awesome. All right, let's continue, right? Has the Quran become a stranger to you? Is the Quran a stranger to you? Do you, this is an interesting question as well. And we had that question posed in one of our last chats in Urdu. What do you know more? You, the listener, right now, if you want to answer now, be honest about it. If you want to answer that later in the comments, I would like to hear from you and talk about it when you come online, hopefully shortly. You can talk about that as well. What do you know more? Do you know the Quran and its stories more? Or do you know the riwayat and Israeliyat and hadith more? If I said to you something about, say, Nabi Musa, yeah, or Nabi Lut, or any one of those very famous characters, what would you tell me about them? What you would be telling me, would that be coming from the Quran or from the riwayat that you and I have been hearing all of our lives? Be honest. It's something I'm always genuinely intrigued by ever since we started pondering on this particular question since it was posed. Do you find, or if you've gone past that point, are you one of those group who now has started to find that, hey, what the Quran says, the terms it uses, the patterns it employs, its stories, even its stories, its characters, they're not the same people that we find in the riwayat. What we see in the Quran is one thing. Maybe the name is the same, but when we find something about a particular person, say Rasul Isa or Nabi Musa, when we read about them in the Quran, the stories, Nabi Yusuf, whatever happens to him with that very famous woman that we all know and aspire to, well, I aspire to meet somebody like that when I was a bit younger. How many of us know the story of Yusuf going and being seduced by a beautiful woman called Zulaykha? How many of us know that? And how many of us know that that story does not even occur in the Quran? There is no talk. There's no name of that woman, none whatsoever. The more you delve, the more something else you find. Are you one of that group already? How did you get there? What made you question what you were taught all your life? What changed? What was the trigger point? Again, I'd like to hear more about it. Let's continue on. Are you scared? Are you scared to use your mind? Do you fear that the Quran is beyond you? You cannot get his fahm, despite his claims. Maybe you are one of that group. And well, let's start from the beginning. Maybe you are somebody who hasn't started yet, but you try and wait, try and dip your feet. They get a bit wet. You realize how deep it is, and you kind of walk away. You say, this is not for me. Or you have tried understanding the Quran. And I know a lot of people in this group as well. The more you get in, the more depths you encounter, the meaning continues to shine, the beauty continues to come out. There's this depth that you find the divine talking to you dynamically based upon who you are, where you are in your particular moment in your life. It matches what you experience. And maybe then you feel overwhelmed. You say, this is too much. I don't know what to do about it. Are you one of those people? How do you understand that? Let me ask again, what is the Quran to you? Yeah? What is it to you? Let me quickly put up a link. And as I was saying, I don't want to talk too much today, right? I think I've done a lot of talking on the channel. And frankly, I think it's very important that this does not remain a one-way conversation. So what I would like to do is just copying this. I will pin the link. And if anybody would like to come and start talking to me, to us, having a conversation, and this is, for those who know, I'm not one who likes to argue for the sake of arguments, right? Whether we agree or whether we disagree, so long we're being honest to ourselves, because at the end of the day, we answer for nobody, for us, but for ourselves. If you're one of those people who would like to come and talk about it, here is a link. You just have to click it, and it will take you right through into the studio where we can have a conversation. Let me go through. I think I should just pin this message as well. So just give me 1 second. And I think this has now become pinned. And I can see one brother has already joined. So Brother Yusuf, give me 1 minute. I'll do my last points, and then we'll start having a conversation. All right. I, for those who didn't know before, I'm a simple student of the Quran. I don't make any claims. I continue to learn, and I'm hoping the more we talk, the more we learn as well. I personally trust the Quran's claim that it is guidance for mankind. Mankind. I did not say religion. I never say religion. I can't say it. Quran is huda for an-nas, for mankind, for people. It is not for a specific religion, a specific faith. I've been here on YouTube for over a year. Since I've started doing English videos, people have been commenting, emailing, reaching out from all parts of the world, parts that I didn't even realize I'd get to hear from. So US, UK, well, kind of expected. Australia as well. But Malaysia, well, never thought there would be many people there watching these sort of, well, following this sort of content in English. South Africa, I didn't realize there was a big expat community there. Bangladesh, for all those people who can't obviously converse in Urdu Hindi that we normally talk in. Turkey surprised me. A lot of people from African countries. The more, whoever you are, come along. Let's talk. Let's share. Let's hear from you. Share your experience. Let's connect through and via the Quran. Yeah. All right. Having said all of that, yep. As I was saying, I'm not going to just keep talking to myself. So I'm going to remove this. We have got 2 people in the studio already. Brother Yusuf, and after that there's Munaf Khan. So let's start with Brother Yusuf. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum, Moses sir. Can I speak only in English? I don't know English. मैं हिंदी में बात कर सकते क्या Moses sir?
Brother Yusuf, only in English today.
Oh, okay.
Only in English today. Is there
Moses,
anything you want to say? Yeah.
Yes, Brother Moses. I have one small doubt in Quran, chapter number 9, verse number 1 to 6. Please, can you clarify the what is exact meaning in that ayat?
Yeah, I think I remember you were the one on the comments as well. Let's park this for today. Let's pick it up again, inshallah, next week or the week after, when we'll do something in Urdu. We can talk there. Sounds okay?
Okay.
All right. If there was anything else about the topic you want to say, or shall we just do it next week with yourself?
Okay.
All right. Shukran, brother, for coming, and inshallah we'll talk next week, yeah, in Urdu or Hindi.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. So apologies for all those listening as well. I know the vast majority of people listening to us is still from Pakistan and India, but I do genuinely want to not just speak in Urdu or Hindi. So this, I would not be rude, but I would be insistent that we do talk in English and try and stay on the topic. Brother Munaf Khan, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Dr.
How are you, Brother Munaf?
Alhamdulillah, fine. How about you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. So what have you listened from the beginning? What do you think about some of the questions that have been posed so far?
Yeah, I am listening to all of your video from a couple of months. Recently, around 2 months, and I almost finished all of them. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, you are, mashallah, you're on the right track. I think so.
No, that's obviously, it's always good to talk to people. So what do you think, what is the Quran to you? What is your relationship with the Quran? What do you think, how does it work for you, or does it work for you?
No, the Quran is, it is from high significance, and it is a very highly advanced literature on the face of the earth for the people for the old people, is still to come until the end. I mean, it is for everybody, not for just Muslim. It is for everybody, and it is live book. I mean, it is live book. It is not book of history. It is live. Allah is the Hayyul Qayyum. He is talking to you through Quran. He is talking to you directly through the Quran, and people have to understand. People have to understand. If people don't understand, then it is the problem. See, it is because most of the people is speaking like in our continent, India, Pakistan, and here, people are still blocking. Last 1,200 years, their minds are blocked there. So they are not coming off. I mean, they have to keep their mind open. You have to read with open. I mean, you have to go to the Quran with the empty cup. If you go with
That's
the
a very good.
pre-notions, yeah. So it will take you. It will sway away you. It will sway you away. Uh, so you have to. I mean, uh, most of the people going to Quran that they want to teach Quran that we know. No, you Quran will teach you. You have to let Quran teach you, and it will teach you. Quran will teach you. You don't have to teach Quran. Quran will teach you. So everything is methodology. I mean, it is organic methodology. You have to understand Quran by itself. Everything is there, but you have to ponder. You have to ponder. You have to keep your mind open. I mean, you have to unlearn things. First unlearn things, and then you go to the Quran.
Not quite right.
Without yeah. You have to unlearn. You have to unlearn, and this is a big problem. People don't like to unlearn things what they have learned.
That's a very good point as well. So for those in the comments, those who will come in later, what are your views on unlearning? To learn something when you're a child is pretty easy. You are blank slate. You start from nothing. You can learn and absorb whatever. But to unlearn when you are an adult, all your life you've been brought up on certain things and certain views and a worldview, and suddenly you realize this no longer matches what the Quran is saying. What do you do? How do you unlearn it?
Yes, whatever we earned from our childhood, we are programmed. You can say we are programmed in a certain way with the funny tales, funny stories, and so it is very hard to unlearn those things. We keep in the one we learn from our grandmother, grandfather, from our forefather. So it is totally different in the Quran. When I study Quran about Isa and about Yusuf story, and about Musa's and about Suleiman and Musa's story is very complicated. Very complicated. Isa also, but Isa story is very important. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran say, "Innahu il Musa." It's a prerequisite. It is so unless and until you will not understand the Isa story, the truth of Isa, you will not understand the Quran. This is definitely.
Yeah.
In every page, in every surah, in every page of the Quran, Allah talk about Isa, but you have to recognize it. If you don't understand, you will go. It will sway you.
Yeah. Would you like to say anything else, brother? If not, then we'll probably we'll move on.
No, you can take somebody else, and later on we can talk. I want to talk to you, Mr. Dr. Musa, but after you finish everything, and then I want to have a couple of words with you later on.
Okay, certainly. Yeah. All right, I'll keep you in the back studio then. Yeah. All right. Okay, brother. Shukran for coming. Okay. So I've got a few comments that caught my eye, and I'll apologize if I missed some of them, but the ones that kind of caught my eye, I was tagging as they were coming in. So let me just go through them whilst we wait for anybody else to come. So as I've been saying before, many a time, I don't find a lot of channels, a lot of places, a lot of avenues for people who want to focus on the Quran in English to come and talk like this. I did not have something like this when I started out all those many, many years ago. So maybe you're not one of those people today who would like to come up and have this chat, a non-judgmental chat, no matter where you are in your journey, in your path, wherever direction, trajectory you're taking. I don't judge, because it's not my job to judge. It's not my job to argue, because arguments, for the sake of arguments, lead nobody nowhere. No one ever comes out of a debate, whether they won or lost, to say, oh yeah, I kind of see what the other party said. No, that is not the right attitude. So what I'm saying is, if you see this video tomorrow, next week, whenever, and you find one of these streams come up again in English, no matter where, maybe it's not something you've done before, but I'd like you to find the courage and do come up and start talking. Doesn't matter which country you come from. I personally, as I was saying before, the more people I've kind of received messages from outside of our traditional area, more interesting it's become. I've had comments from a couple of Arabs. One of them born in America, so Arabic for them. Well, funny story for them. Arabic is a third language for them, because they learn English when they're growing up, or European language. The families that they live with, they don't speak Quranic Arabic. We all know that. They're speaking their Lehja or their Lakna, their Shamia, etc., etc. So they learn a version of that. And then on top of that, Quranic Arabic, not even Fusha, that's a completely different league. So what I'm saying is, we've got all of these different people, different experiences. English is a language that allows us all to come together and converse. If you find this courage, we had to encourage people a great deal in Urdu, in Hindi, when we started out. We didn't have a lot of people come up. So myself and a couple of other dedicated people would just keep talking to ourselves until somebody turned up. And we've got lots more happening in Urdu. I'd like this to hopefully happen more in English as well. So I'll go through some of the comments that I had. And after that, I'd like to go through, if I'm by myself, that's fine. I've got a few Quranic ayats on the topic as well that I like to go through very quickly, my understanding, not a deep dive, but because they're kind of relevant to the Quran, but to the topic that we've chosen today, I'll go through them, even this just for me, just me talking to myself, if there's no one else to talk to, right? So let me start with the comments that had caught my eye. So Miss Ali, I think you and I have commented. So this is another group of Muslims, especially in the English world, for whatever reason. And I don't disparage people. They take level 1 meaning of the Quran, where earth is flat. And this is frankly something I neither find supported by the Quran. The Quran says nothing to that effect. I just want to say this out loud. So my position is clear, and I'm just disparaging yours. Your faham is yours. I don't find that either in the Quran or through their ilm that Allah has asked us to go and seek in His kawn. His al-kawn, all the universe that we live in, His ayat are there everywhere. And this ayat, the way to find them is through the tools He's given us. And we have to continue to follow, to the best of our abilities, what we find out there. Brother or sister, I'm not sure how to say it. Silabit. Yep. Challenge for you is finding the real interpretation. This might sidetrack us, but I think depending on who you are, where you are, it's kind of relevant to the first question as well. Depending on where you are in your life, the more knowledge you have, Quran's knowledge, or the ideal, we talked about this in Urdu, the alim of Islam is not somebody who goes into a degree school for 10 years and comes out with the ijaza that means he can become an imam or mufti somewhere. That is not the alim of Islam. That is not the alim of Quran. The alim is who uses their ilm, who goes and researches all of these ayats in the universe that he or she encounters. That is the person. So wherever you are in your journey, you are going to find a shade of the meaning of the Quranic ayat in accordance to your understanding of that moment. And this is my view. This is my understanding of the Quran. So what I'm saying is to say this is the real interpretation. I've got real problems with anybody who comes up and says this is the only possible meaning you can always ever take. Okay, let's move on to the next comment that caught my eye. Okay, Cat Kit. Yes, there's a very famous term called Israeliyat. And Israeliyat are in essence all of the tales about the biblical figures, so-called biblical figures that we find in Quran as well, we assume they are the same people. So very liberally, we take what the Bible says or the oral traditions say about those people, and we put that on top of what the Quranic narrative is, to the effect where sometimes, no, not sometimes, most of the times, these Israeliyat, these made-up stories, these fables about those people, end up supplanting what the Quran says. So it's a huge problem, and I would say most, even traditional Muslims, have been aware and been fighting the overarching influence of Israeliyat over what the Quran says. Okay, the next one was from Jaitan Ghani. Indeed, Quran is a very essential form of communication with Allah. Well, if you end up buying the basic premise of the Quran, that it is the divine's message to you, well, then it is a message for you, right? Isn't it? Allah is talking to you. Shouldn't you do something about it? Or would you just rather ignore it and leave it? Would you rather outsource that to somebody else? You'd go to a concert yourself, yeah? You wouldn't want to live vicariously through experiences of others. You won't send your son to the music concert that you'd much rather be. You want to go there yourself. But we don't listen to the Quran. We don't follow. We don't read the Quran ourselves. We'd much rather outsource that to others, right? We'd much rather have that become a task for people who wear funny clothes and funny hats. Because let's be honest, it is what it is. You have to wear a certain type of a pagadi, as we say in our languages, or a certain style, and use specific language, and your beard must be this many fist long, etc. And without that, you can't be the one to talk about Allah, and you've outsourced all of that. So is that fair? Is that fair to say? I find this really perplexing. Brother Flame was saying, yes, Nas and Bashar, I think we talked about this slightly. Yes, they are used differently in Quran, and Quran does not use synonyms, is my understanding. So wherever there's Nas versus Bashar, depending upon the siyaq, the context, the meaning does change slightly. And we had Brother Hassan saying, I think, if I'm paraphrasing, completing it for you, you find the Quran confusing and unreadable. And I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. Even now, if I try and actively sometimes not try and unlearn what I know from before, then reading the Quran and still remembering what I was told, I find some of the things quite strange as well. What is it that's being talked about? So if you say you find it confusing at times through the prism of these muddy waters over the last 1200 years, then I do not blame you at all. But there are ways around it, obviously. And this is where I'm hoping more and more of us will share, not just me talking about it. Sister Khadija, the words of Allah gives you peace. Well, you're one of those very lucky ones indeed. Miss Ali had a few other comments as well. Well, there is a group of people, which is quite ironic, because we find this group of people called by a few other labels in the Quran. And those descriptions of those people who say, we are the guided ones, we know how you should do things. Well, they haven't had a very beautiful picture painted about them in the Quran. Let's be honest about it. But there are people who do declare that you can't understand the Quran without our intervention, without our fahm, without knowing what our teachers say, etc. Is that fair? I don't think so. Is that Quranic? Absolutely not. I would personally not call anybody deviant, by the way. I don't think people, I like to think good of people. I don't think most of these traditional class, even the hierarchy, I don't think most of them are bad. I just think it's hard to unlearn. So it's very easy to paint the brush and say all of those people who are traditional, who continue to act in a specific way, groupthink, they're all wrong and they're all deviants, all do good on purpose. I don't think so. I think just as hard as it was for me personally, it's probably doubly so for them. If you've spent all your life, 20, 30 years learning, propagating a certain worldview, well, it's very hard to give it up. Very hard to give it up. And I think we might have gone through this before with Brother Reddy, but I tagged it from before. Yes, indeed, the more you read, the more you engage, the deeper you get. Well, as I say, the pearls don't wash up on the surface, do they? You have to go dive for them. And with the Darth Vader, you use the Quran to validate your understanding of history and to tune your moral compass. That, well, those two you could probably spend decades talking about, dozens of PhD theses out there. Yes, so you use the Quran to go act as a criterion for certain actions or events that happen in history, and that's a way that you find its application for inner ilm, in knowledge, and that's perfectly great. That's awesome. Tuning your moral compass is quite a good one, because questions for morality continue to change, don't they? We've got ChatGPT, AI. I've had quite a few interactions in that particular world. In a world where you've got more and more automation happening and AI is coming, you've got knowledge being created by entities without conscience. What sort of moral questions and quandaries does that raise? We can't rely on people dead 1200 years for questions of our era, nor can people in the next 2 centuries be forced to listen to me or you and people of our era. That's not fair. This is not how the Quran works. So this tuning is, I think, a pretty important constant process. Okay, let me quickly go through some of the comments while I was reading these. If not, as I was saying before, I will talk about a few ayahs, and if nobody comes, I will finish it up in 2 hours and hope that somebody else comes in and talks to us next time as well. Just going through the comments that came in. Were there any that I missed? Sister Miss Ali. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, I'm just reading your comments now. All right. I apologize. I assumed something. And yep, I'll take my words back about whatever I said. Again, I don't mean to name any people. The idea, well, I like to talk about ideas, and that's a part that matters more. All right, Masihi Muslim, long time no see, no speak. Any verse? Oh, okay. I think your comment goes in there. Any verse of any scholar? I don't understand this. I don't understand this. But I see you have come in, so I will have a quick chat with you shortly. Just going through the comments. Yes, this is an ayah that I did wonder if somebody would bring up. So yudillu bihi kathira. So apparently Allah misguides people. Does He misguide people, or has He given us? He has given us the framework, the aptitude, the power, the ability to go make our own decisions and decide for us whether we want to become guided or misguided. And depending on what direction we choose, we end up becoming firmed in that worldview. This is what the Quran says. But if you remain stuck within the surface level, as some people do, all that you get out of this level 1 meaning is that Allah misguides people with the Quran. Well, there is an exception. And the exception is the only people who misguide or become misguided are the ones who wish to be misguided. If you read the text and it clearly says something, yet you continue to take something out of the Quran and superimpose on it, well, who's there to be blamed? Allah gave you the ability, the power, the capability to do what you wish, and whatever you do comes down to you. But yes, it's a very scary ayah, and this is something I've seen some of the traditional ulama in Pakistan Urdu parade around and say, you can't read the Quran. No, it's beyond you. You're going to be misguided by the Quran. So in other words, what you're saying is, you are going to become dirty by taking a shower. That's what we're telling you. You have to listen to us. The bathroom, the shower is not a place to become cleansed, but there is a chance that you might end up becoming even worse than how you went in. Well, that's not quite right. You're tarring the whole picture. But I think the point was quite clear. And yeah, Brother Naeem Khan and Khalid. That is an interesting question, and it's kind of, as I do say, I think people, depending upon where they are in their own journeys and their own paths, on their own trajectories, if they are honest to themselves and they let the Quran guide their worldview, then the world that we end up with is not a world which is totalitarian, where there's groupthink, where you're not allowed to think, basically. Brother Masihi Muslim, Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Assalamu alaikum, Moses. Nice to hear you after a long time.
Yeah, likewise. So I don't know how long you've been listening in, but if you've heard the beginning, what is your relationship with the Mus'haf, with this thing, this entity we call the Quran?
Well, it's a guide, and it ends to be misused by people. But there are verses like the one you just read that see, when he says he misguides and then he guides the one who need to be who are willing to be guided. What happens to an imam? He is misguiding the innocent people. They say, okay, what he is saying is right. Who is misguiding these innocent guys? Is Allah Ta'ala misguiding these innocent people because of this one imam or two imams?
Yeah, this is a very interesting point. Our other fellow, well, usually it's me and Dr. Iqbal who talk on the Urdu streams. He likes to say this quite a bit. He says, we love blaming the shaitan. We love blaming Iblis. Iblis, we keep very busy. Apparently, he's one magical entity, and he's busy. The guy takes no breaks. He has no time off. He has got no vacation time. He is involved throughout the world from the very first human until the very end. And his only job is to continue to misguide people. And he's there as a very easy scapegoat for people to say, oh, it wasn't my fault, it was him. So yeah, no, Brother Masihi, it's very easy to blame others, but very hard to say, I had the capability to think. I had the opportunity to use my mind. I chose not to.
I see. So basically, who are you blaming here with the innocent guys?
Yeah, this might take us slightly away from where I'm not into blame games. I think what it does come down to is, if you kind of take a step back, today, all I'm really interested in is hearing from people their relationships with the Quran. How have they come about it? What sort of challenges they faced? Where do they sit? Where do they see themselves going forwards, etc.? So, you want to talk a little bit about that, Masihri?
Yeah, basically, because people are using the Quran as a guide, and at the end of the day, there are people who are misguided too. In fact, if you look at it, but your views might people who've been believing in the Quran the way they have been taught, they feel that you are misguiding them. Dr. Hani Ashkans, it seems many people say he's misguiding people. So at the end of the day, how does one take the Quran is going to be dependent on people who are as such authority, who claim to have authority on the Quran. So one's guidance and misguidance is to one who actually sits down and studies the Quran and then comes up with how the Quran is guiding them, or are you talking of the common man who is actually not into actually reading the text and understanding it? And now that's the issue over here. There are so many thoughts, which, especially with the social media, you have people coming up with this, which is a very good thing, because that indoctrination is being taken out. But at the same time, if you are removing that indoctrination, people would come up and say, "Oh, you're misguiding us," which you have faced. You know that, right?
Well, all we can do is continue to say what the message says and leave it at that. There's nothing more I can say or do. If somebody doesn't wish to learn, someone doesn't wish to be convinced, they'd much rather stay on the path on which they saw their forefathers on, and they're happy there, they're comfortable there. No matter how many discussions you have, how many debates you have, how many academic points you present, how many propositions you give them, all supported one after the other, how many ayat of the Quran you present to them, they will not understand. And I don't find much value in doing that. I'm going back to what you said before. Yes, there are people who are talking about the Quran more and more, and this has become, I would say, it's a hugely beneficial thing for us. We've got people coming up with all sorts of ideas, some weird, some wacky, some wonderful, some awesome. a mix of all things in between. Is that wrong? Well, this is where I would like not just to keep giving my views on, but I like to think you've picked up on a topic here, Masihi, that hopefully others, if not today, because they're still a bit shy in English, I suspect, with the audience that I normally talk to, down the track they would like to come and talk about. As in, if we have these competing views, where and how do we judge? And my answer to that is always quite simple, which is, if someone says to you something about the Quran, about something about Allah, it is a really easy falsifiable thing. See what the Quran says about it. If it doesn't say it, leave it. If it says and there is support, you have to take a step back, be academic about it, and have a think about it. It need not be such a complicated thing where we say, oh, we can't make sense of what this person is saying from that person, because at the end of the day, the source is there, has been there with all of us. It hasn't just gone away.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's hard to remove indoctrinations, but channels like yours, I think so, they're doing a good job with it. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'll tell you. Now, I've told you I have a mixed background. I have a Christian and a Muslim background, and though most of my time has been spent with Christianity, but studying the Quran has brought me to the understanding, why on earth are we fighting with each other? Because there's so much stuff in the Quran, in the Bible, in the old scriptures, which should be uniting us. We claim to be of the Abrahamic faith, but we are actually against each other. So, which means there's a lack of understanding. Why we claim to be of the Abrahamic faith and then we go after each other's neck? So there's a lack of understanding or a misguidance, which we have to resolve, because it comes to people like you, me, and the others who need to come up with stuff that brings us closer, rather than dividing us. This is the whole crust of what I feel we should be doing. People are spending so much time on let's say, if you take a Muslim, you take a Christian, they'll be talking about, oh, what happened 1500 or 1600 years back, this happened. I find it, I said, why are we spending much time on history? What's the effect? What we have to do is, if there's a bad effect, let's try to get rid of that bad effect and try to look. People bring up the negative things that happen in Islam, rather than talking of the positivity. Plus, we don't have to spend so much time on what Prophet Muhammad did or what the Sahabas did. What is applicable today is to be considered. I fail to understand why people are spending so much time on the history of, and especially the negative side of it.
Yeah, I'll make two comments, and then maybe Brother Masih, if it's okay, we'll move on. Number one, I will agree with you and disagree with you at the same point. Yeah, and this is the beauty of conversations like these, where we can agree to disagree without having there been a bloodbath between us. Number one, I really love what you're saying, and this is the message of the Quran. We live in pluralistic societies, and this is what the Quran expects from us. He has made us shu'uban, and He has made us people so we can know each other. He hasn't made one better than the other, except for the one who's got better in taqwa. So there's no Arab who's got any superiority than the other, and no Pakistani is better than a Bengali. No matter what I might think about it personally, in Allah's eyes, we are all equal, except for the one who does good. So having taken that point, as I said, we have the liberty to disagree, and this is a sign of a society like this. To the points that you said, we are not Muslims because we say certain special sentences in Arabic. Just because I say the shahadatain in Arabic, which has got no basis in the Quran, it does not make me a Muslim. It does not make somebody a Muslim. This is a non-Islamic way of dividing up people that I talked about in the very beginning. So a Christian, somebody we call a Christian, if they are if they are submitting their attention, they're submitting their focus to what Allah wants, then Quranically they are a Muslim. They are a Muslim. And a Muslim who says certain Arabic words, sings the Quran in a specific way daily, but does everything against the message of the Quran, he is not a Muslim. It's a really simple demarcation point. So this was just a point of semantics that I wanted to be clear, that for those who don't know our conversations about it before, take away from it clearly. For me, my understanding of the Quran is very clear. Muslim is not somebody who is born into a faith or does certain rituals, but one who does actions that Allah expects from them. All of our prophets, the ones we know, the ones we don't know, are equal for us, whether that be Jesus or Muhammad or Musa, anybody. They're all of them are important. So we will never be saying that we are the followers of one particular person or that particular person. We're followers of Islam. And this is a part that some might not like, but I don't think Islam is an Abrahamic faith. It's got nothing to do. This family, based on historical roots called the Abrahamic faiths, tree of religions, etc., is good enough to study history, but it's got nothing to do with the Quran. The Quran does not rely on the previous scriptures for its message. The corrupted scriptures is what I wanted to say. So what we today know as the Torah and all the Talmud and the oral tradition and the 4 books plus the other books that are called the New Testament, written by people we don't know, no one knows, they're not the Bible. They're not the they're not the Injil of the Quran. So we'll disagree on that respectfully, but we'll just move on so as to not get distracted.
I just do want to ask you, do you take the Quran to be the inerrant word of God, Allah Ta'ala?
Absolutely. And we've talked about this, and we won't go into this right now.
Well, then you are indoctrinated. Sorry to say it.
Not a problem, brother.
Thank you.
Anything else, Masihi? Because I'd like to go on through with a few verses now.
Thank you. Thank you for the time, man. Have a nice day.
Okay. Isn't that good, by the way, to be able to disagree
Of course.
without there being bad blood between us?
Of course. There's no such thing as bad blood between us. I do, admire you for your work, and you are bringing a change. I think so, Bentley, especially removing the hardness, or what you call what people get indoctrinated and they say, oh, we are. So I do like it, but your stand of anybody taking a stand. If a Christian takes a stand, the Bible, they take that stand. Many Christians, mainstream Christians, the Bible is the indoctrinated word of God. Now you taking that stand that the Quran is not indoctrinated, it's a inerrant word of God, and so is the Quran the inerrant word of God. The only way it can be inerrant if it had come down in written form from heaven. It was written by men, and men do commit errors. So please take that. And what needs to be put in, what verses not to be included. If people are doing it, there is a very much likelihood that it does have errors, and that is what we need to look into. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Masihi, for coming in, and see you next time, inshallah.
Certainly. No hard feelings, but okay.
Absolutely not. But I thank you. I'll say goodbye to you. Assalamu alaikum. So what brother was saying, again, we have talked before, locked horns, so to speak, in Urdu, and I've got very clear views and answers to all of those, and we've gone through. The point that I would like you to think about, those listening in, if you want to come and talk about it, or in the future, this group of people who find the Quran as an entity, as an artifact in their lives, it's been there, it's got historicity behind it. What do you do with it? How do you deal with it? You compare, because there's nothing else. We do end up comparing what we have with a fantastic claim upon the standards that we hold. How do you make that judgment? How do you believe that this is something more than the written word of some man living in the desert 1500 years ago? What is it that makes you believe that? How do you get to that point? Believe is not the right word. How do you get to that point academically? How do you convince yourself that there is, well, let's be honest, there is no 100% certainty. How do you make this reasonable claim behind that? Yeah, I've got my answers out there. but I'm leaving this as food for thought for others who might want to think about it and answer and give us their take on it. There was a comment by Saila Beat again. I don't know if you speak Urdu or Hindi, but there's a video that we have done called How to Learn the Quranic Arabic. So if you speak Urdu or Hindi, I would suggest you go look that video up on the channel. We spent quite a bit of time. We went through all of the strategies and ways and directions that were useful for us, myself and Dr. Iqbal, who was with me. We went through our journeys, our paths, the resources that we used, the challenges that we had, and some feedback for those who might want to start for themselves. Now, this is assuming that you understand Urdu or Hindi. If not, well, we may one day, well, let's just make it really simple. Arabic is a language. It's not sacred. It's like any language. How do you learn a language? You learn a language by interacting with it. The more you interact, the more you learn. If you don't learn. It's really quite simple. All right, so as I was saying, Brother Saeed, in the comments, I don't know that I'll have to pick it up. It will take us away from the topic, so I won't go into that. But no, the bayt in the Quran has got nothing to do with a house made of stones in a particular city. I'm not saying, by the way, for those who haven't watched me on the Urdu video, there was Rasul Muhammad. There's historicity there. There's no denying that, absolutely whatsoever. But the bayt in the Quran for me is not the house of stone that, well, people dress up once a year and go 7 times around it is a ritual. I don't find any evidence for that in the Quran, per my understanding. Back to the topic. And as I said, I'll go through a few verses. Even if I'm talking to myself, I try not to do any video with no Quranic verses. I just don't like it. So I will, even if that means I'm ending up on that, that's perfect. But to the topic, I had a few ayat of the Quran that I'd bring up. All I did was something really simple. And this probably might help answer the brother Sai's question as well. I went to this website, tanzil.net. There are many websites. Choose one that works for you, whatever is easy for you. The one I quite like this because I can type in Arabic words, or I can do jazr, I can do roots for those words. And when I do that, it basically very easily helps me find all of the Quranic ayat containing that word or that pattern, etc., etc. There's some advanced ones as well where you can search just on the tashkil or just on the wazn and all that sort of stuff. So if you get to a certain point, then you'll just be basically finding better resources than this. But this is a really good starting position. So to marry up with the topic, I did something really simple, which was type the word Quran in the Quran to see what we end up with. 69 ayats contain that 70 times. And I picked a few just to go through that and drive home the point as we conclude this, where I talk to, where I'm conversing mostly a one-way conversation as to what the Quran says about itself and how does it expect to be treated with, not what we've been told, but how Allah, the sender, the creator of this message, expects us to interact with his message. The first ayah that I had bring up, which I have now lost for some reason, not that one. Let me just go back. Yes, this one here. So this is something I've covered a lot of times before, and I continue after 5 years of the journey, 1 year and a few months on the channel, and innumerable conversations that I've had with people. No matter what you say, no matter how much you talk, no matter what evidence you give, it comes down to what the ayah says. It comes down to this. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ. And whenever it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, as in this Quran. And for those who doubt that this Anzalallahu is anything else, there are many ayats to come that clearly say, for Hidayah, what God is talking about, sending as a tanzil, as something that's sent down, is the Quran for us, for our time. What do they say? When you ask them to do this, what do they say? Bal, qalu, bal. They say, no, nattabi'u ma alfayna alayhi aba'ana. We will do what we saw our ancestors doing. We will only do what we saw our ancestors do. What people before us were doing. Our scholars, the pious generations, the first, the second, the third groups of people who saw a certain somebody, they are the ones we're going to follow. Allegedly, those reports written by them, by people, majhul people, etc., we're going to take that. أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا. Even if their ancestors, or those people who passed away, the bigwigs, they did not use the aql, وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ, and they were not trying to be guided, you're still going to go and use those people. You're going to outsource your understanding to those people. You're going to say, I don't want to think. I want to pass it on to somebody else. And to use my analogy, we would not live vicariously. I follow cricket, right? There's a couple of very great, well, there's a good test match happening right now between England and New Zealand. I'd like to go and watch it. But will I go send somebody else in my stead or try and get the ticket to the beautiful country and watch it myself? I wouldn't send somebody else in my stead. But no, for the Quran, we just follow what others did. We would not bother. And this is a very typical pattern of behavior that I see in 3 languages. With Arabs that I speak to, sometimes argue with, to no effect, people in Urdu, Hindi, and people in English. Let's go to another one. And this is the reason why I don't argue. So my brother Masihi, the brother who was here before, and this is not, again, I'm not pointing names here. I don't do that. This is just to make a point to the idea that the brother made, and some other people make as well. So I would not want anybody to take things personally. But what I have learned from these 2 ayat in particular is a lesson that I cannot forget, which is no matter what I do, people will only understand if they wish to unlearn, if they wish to learn. Allah says, not me. His words are, وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ, and when, let me bring this up, and when you, the person here, whoever the person is, right now it's me, when you read, let's say qira'ah is reading for now, it's more than that. وَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ, whenever you read the Quran, pronounce the Quran, explain the verses, lay them bare in front of them. جَعَلْنَا بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ, we make between you and those who do not believe in the delayed understanding of the Quran, hijaban mastura. And this part scares me. This part scares me. And I am surprised, constantly surprised by those who continue to reject despite having read this verse. I read this out. I read this verse quite a bit and I say, I'm not going to argue with you because as per Allah's command, if you don't wish to understand, there's a barrier. There's a hijab. By the way, hijab, as you can see, it's got nothing to do with the head wheel here. But if you don't want to listen, don't want to understand, there's a hijab, there's a parda, as we say in our language. There is a barrier that you can't even see. It's a curtain that is so transparent you don't even realize it. It's as if it's not there, but it is there. And so long you remain engulfed in your own worldview, you're never going to see it. وَجَعَلْنَا عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ أَكِنَّةً أَن يَفْقَهُوهُ, and we drape veils over their qulub, over their thinking beings, that prevents them from understanding it. وَفِي آذَانِهِمْ وَقْرًا, and let's even take that literally, and heaviness in their ears. No matter what you say, they're not going to hear it. وَإِذَا ذَكَرْتَ رَبَّكَ فِي الْقُرْآنِ وَحْدَهُ, and whenever you talk about the Rabb, isn't this a scary part? Whenever you talk about Allah in just the Quran, this is the part where I disagree with the translation a little bit. One of the brothers made a comment about translations and interpretations. Wahdahu for me returns to the Quran. وَإِذَا ذَكَرْتَ, whenever you talk about Rabbaka, your Rabb, fil Qur'ani wahdahu, only in the Quran, as in I try and not go outside of the Quran to talk and understand what our Rabb is, who our Rabb is, what his personality, what his traits are, what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he doesn't want or want us from to do. If I don't stick just to the Quran, yeah, وَلَّوْا عَلَىٰ أَدْبَارِهِمْ نُفُورًا, they turn their backs. They turn their backs in aversion. They walk away. They're not interested. They're not keen. Do we know people like that? Do you know people like that? Do you want to come talk about this? If you've seen this in your lives. Just saw a comment in there. Yes, I think I've got this ayah, Brother Adarab. So I will bring it up. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, again, these ayat are popular. I really doubt. I honestly doubt anybody in this session today will not have heard about them. But I'm constantly amazed by the fact that we know them, we hear them, but they've lost their meaning somehow to those who do not wish to dwell on what they say. My job, I think, I believe reading the Quran is to lay them out, to remind them. After that, up to the person. It's not my job to give hidayah. It wasn't any prophet's job. It's not my headache. It's not my. I have a responsibility to pass it on, take it or leave it. There's no argument there. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not consider, ponder, think carefully what the Quran is, what the Quran says? أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Or are on the thinking hearts, the thinking capabilities, locks? Yeah? Which group are we in? For those who constantly try and mix the Quran with something else. We're talking about this another ayah before. ذَكَرْتَ رَبَّكَ. Just in the Quran, they don't like it. Well, if you take the Rasul in this ayah to be the messenger Muhammad, the only complaint in the Quran that we can find that he makes on the final moments after his death is this, which is وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّي إِنَّ قَوْمِي اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. Oh Lord, oh my Lord, my people. Again, my people, qawmi is not people. Well, even if you take this to be just his ashab, that's even worse. But qawm for a prophet is all those people who follow him. And this is why I was saying we're not the followers of Ibrahim. We're not an Abrahamic faith. Islam has been there before him, was there in his time, and will be there forever. The messenger will say that my people who claimed in my name, followed in the risalah that I brought, they left the very message to the side. Isn't that hilarious? In a really sad, tragic way. The messenger says that the message, well, people walked away from it. They made all sorts of fancy names, titles, but the message in particular was not something that they were interested in. They just, we say in Urdu, kuch kar gaye. They just packed their stuff and walked away. For those who might find the Quran hard, this is possibly a slightly controversial view, but I stand by it. And as I said, I'm not going into great detail today. I just want to cover these verses. I like to never leave a video without the Quran. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. And certainly we have made the Quran easy for dhikr. So I acknowledge in the Quran, whole of the Quran is not easy. And this is where I was alluding to before. So there is a group of people, and I like to think I'm part of that group, where the deeper you go, the more depths you encounter. And you can feel that there is something deeper. It's not contradictory to what you know, and that's the beauty. But you absolutely know that you could be spending more time here, or you need to, or that when you come back to it after some more experiences, you'll understand this in a clear shade of what you understood it before. So it's not the whole of the Quran is easy, but a certain part, the dhikr, all of the components of the dhikr, all the qasas we find, all the stories we find, all the morals that we take away, they are easy. So if we were to just even stay there, what happened with Nabi Yusuf or anybody else? It's not hard, but we need to unlearn. If we wish to go and become one of those people who understand this. This was an ayah that I covered in an Urdu video. We talked about that the Quran is not to be sung. Well, you can. I don't find anything against it in the Quran. It just doesn't say that you get any, as we say in our languages, thawab or ajr or hasanat, because you are reciting it in a beautiful, melodious way with a certain pattern. And if you stray from it, then you're making a mockery of it, etc. Ratal tartil has got nothing to do with singing in a specific way. أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا. رتل القرآن ترتيلا. Somebody I think asked before the message. So yeah, if you wish to, once you get to the point of understanding the Quran or wanting to do it, just as I did, put the topics that you're interested in together, all of those ayat, and go through them. This is the tartil of the Quran, not singing in a specific way. So ways the Quran expects us to engage with it. How many of those ways are we following or not? Well, we all know about ourselves, don't we? نحن أعلم بما يقولون. We are aware of what they say. وما أنت عليهم بجبار. Now this part, yes, applies to the first recipient of the Quran being Prophet Rasul Muhammad, but it applies to you, me as well. I'm not a jabbar, dictator. Nobody is. We are all to do what we have the power to do out of free will. That's there's something that's been given to us. فذكر بالقرآن من يخاف وعيدي. Then remind others, remind people with the Quran, whoever fears the warning. I think this is, I'll draw your eyes to this part. فذكر بالقرآن. Then remind them with the Quran. Doesn't say, even if this ayah was just for Nabi Muhammad, He doesn't say فَذَكِّرْ يَا مُحَمَّدْ بِالْقُرْآنِ وَسُنَّتِكَ, that remind them, O Muhammad, with the Quran and your Sunnah, or Sunnat Ashabak, or Sunnat, all those people who follow you. Doesn't say anything like that. All it says is remind them with the Quran. And we'll see ayahs keep coming up on this. So those who wish to add stuff to the Quran, that is their desire. But that is not what the Quran expects from those who wish to follow and understand it. If you don't do that, if you mix what the Quran says with other stuff, it does become hard to understand. If we continue to pore over the pure Quranic message, whatever we inherited from Christians and Jews, the Quran is gone. The Quran is lost. It inherits nothing from them. Again, point to the side. I don't want to get into it, but I'm sure those who have paid attention to the Quran will agree. There's no word for Christians in the Quran. Quran never talks about Christians. There's no Masihi. We had a brother by that name. Quran does not even use that term. There's no Masihiyin. In the Arab world, Christians are called Masihi, al-Masihiyun, Masihiyun fi Misr, Masihiyun fi hadhi al-Madina, etc., etc. Quran doesn't use that at all. There's no Masihi, there's no Isai, as we say in our languages. There's no term like that. Ansar has got nothing to do with Christians. So yet again, problem of us putting on top of the Quran something that the Quran does not say, does not mean. It's hard to get out of. These are hard principles, but if you're hearing this for the first time, what do you say to this? How do you find this? I'm making maybe very bold declaration to you, but it is supportable by the Quran. The Quran does not talk once to or about the Christians. How does that make you feel? You have learned quite a bit about this before, haven't you? That the Quran talks about Ahlul Kitab, for example. Hey, they are the Jews and the Christians. Quran does not say that. It doesn't say that. The Ansar are not Christians. They weren't Christians. They aren't Christians. How does that make you feel? How do you deal with that? What do you do about it? Maybe you'll talk about it one day, or today. I will put up the link again today. Let me do that now, actually. Why not? 1 second. Yep, so here's the link one more time. I've got a little bit of time, probably half an hour. If I'm by myself by the half an hour mark, another half an hour, then I'll just close the meeting, and hopefully we'll have more people talking in a two-way conversation next time as well. So this is an interesting one. إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. The kitab, وَالْكِتَابِ الْمُبِينَ, and the clear. Let's just take the clear kitab, al-kitab, and al-kitab is not the Quran. Al-kitab is something else. Al-kitab has been made a clear Quran. Arabian has got nothing to do, in my family anyway, with the race today we call Arabs. I'm sorry, my Arab brethren, but you're no special for the Quran. Because we've got a group of people in the same geography, we call Jazirat al-Arab, and the languages that they use, they claim come from the same family or this of Quranic Arabic. Yes, I'm not saying that's wrong, but when Quran says Arabian, it is a sifa for the Quran in this particular ayah in terms of the clarity, that the Quran has. It is not saying the Quran is in Arabic, because if that is the case, that we made the Al-Kitab, the laws of the universe, a Quran Arabian, in Arabic, in the language Arabic, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, so you can use your aql. Well, that makes no sense. Are you saying that you have to be speaking a specific language so that you can use your aql on it? What has got aql as in your understanding? You don't need to be speaking a specific language to understand. You need to use your faculty of thinking to understand. There are people who see things in colors. They're not speaking Arabic. People who use their fingers, or the sign language people, they're not talking in any regional languages, etc. So people who want to use their aql, for them, there's a clear Quran, Arabian, that they should dwell on, because that is the explanation, a very good starting position for the Al-Kitab. And what is Al-Kitab? One day, inshallah, we'll talk about it. By the way, for those who do watch Urdu Hindi, I have talked about Al-Kitab there. So if you want to, probably one of the first few videos in the channel goes through that topic. I'll take a quick break, have a look at the comments. Brother Masihi, you are talking, you've got a few comments in there. I missed the context. I'm not quite sure where you are coming from. Brother Muhammad Shah said, yes, I forgot this ayah because it wasn't in today's session. Yeah, exactly. The ayah goes in the end. فَإِذَا هُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. Whenever we talk about Allah alone, just Allah, nothing else, people don't like it. Add people next to Allah, this person, that person, etc., etc., and suddenly they're all happy. They don't find any problems with that, and this is a challenge. This is a huge challenge. I should bring this ayah up because I really like this ayah, and I do talk about this quite a bit. وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ اشْمَأَزَّتْ قُلُوبُ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ. When only Allah is mentioned, that's it. I didn't add plus anything else. Message of Allah. I didn't add anything else. People don't like it, do they? وَإِذَا ذُكِرَ الَّذِينَ مِن دُونِهِ. But whenever others are talked along with him or accept him, إِذَا هُمْ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ. Then they're happy. Then they're all right. Why do we do that? Let's have a quick look at the comments. Brother Masihi, we talked about this before. So there's nothing new that you and I are talking about, but for the sake of those who talk about, it is the same message that was given to Nabi Rasul Muhammad, that was given to Abraham and people before him. So just as the message was not unique to Abraham, hence it cannot be said that we are Abrahamic, we are followers of Abraham. We follow all the prophets in the messengers in what they gave, that they brought to us, but we do not follow people. We follow no people. We follow Allah. That is all who we follow. The Salte, you have just joined. Assalamu alaikum to you and to others who are joining in. Brother Mukhtar is here. Okay, that's an interesting question. Quran is not the message, but the message is within the Quran. So my question is, what is the message? Well, this is something that goes quite deeper with the Mukhtar, I believe, because somebody said to me, I've talked about this in Urdu, learning Quran for the sake of the Quran is useless. What do you get out of it? What do you get out of it? Nothing. You get some brownie points maybe with some people who are like you, etc., etc. You may understand the Quran, but what value is knowledge not applied? The purpose of the Quran, some of the other brothers said to, I think Brother Darth Vader or somebody was saying, I use the Quran to fine-tune my moral compass. Well, that is one very good way of utilizing the Quran. That is the message of the Quran, that you take the Quran's guidelines, you apply this to your life and to the lives of those around you in all the spheres of influence that you have, applying the Quranic principles, application to make life a Jannah for all those who live in it. That is the message of the Quran. And we all do it differently. And how do we all do it differently? I've talked about this in my very last video on the Salat. So in my understanding, the Salat, as-Salah and Salat with two different spellings comes for this particular reason. So if you find your Salat in your own form with others in your society that helps form positive two-way connections, then that is your form of the Salah. That is you interpreting what the Quran says and applying this to the best of your ability to bring about a positive change. What I do is my way of it. What you do is your way of it. Hence the differences in the spelling. Brother Arab, assalamu alaikum to you as well, and to all of those. Brother Masihi, I think we've talked way too much on this topic. I don't think this will be relevant to today whatsoever. All right, we will continue on. Yes, so this is the same ayah. So again, to insist that there's an Arabic language that's being talked about, I find really strange. وَكَذَلِكَ أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا. And that is how we made it a clear Quran. So this is where I would disagree with Brother Itani. I think is an Arab. I would disagree with the way he's translated it. So by taking this sifa, this description of the Quran, as in it's a clear Quran, which does not have language, which does not have corruption, instead of translating it that way, by taking the literal sense or the framework that we use in our daily language, in our culture, in our tradition, he has taken this to be a proper noun, Arabic. And I find this really, really bizarre and not quite right here. وَكَذَلِكَ أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا. And that is how we made this a clear Quran. وَصَرَّفْنَا فِيهِ مِنَ الْوَعِيدِ. And that is how we have diversified, clarified in it the warning. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. So that they perhaps become righteous. Making it in a specific language does not get anything to the rest of the people, does it? أو يحدث لهم ذكرى, or that it may produce a lesson for them, or happens for them a reminder. Dhikr is something really interesting, which I will talk about it one day in detail. Qur'anan Arabiyan, again, same thing, not in language that's being mentioned, but a clear Quran. غير ذي عوج, that does not have defects, that does not have, I don't know how to say this in a concise way, but that does not have any twists or turns or things that are useless. It does not have any of that. لعلهم يتقون, so that they may become those who practice taqwa, who are mindful, who have reverence of Allah, who whenever they do something, they consider what Allah would want from them, how to do our salah with Allah, and how to do our salah with others. They are those who follow not Al-Quran in Arabic, but its message in the way that they understand. This has got nothing to do with the topic, but I do realize that. Sorry, I will talk Arab. I will talk about Arab Shan. This is interesting as well. On a meta level, brother or sister Arab Shan, we are talking right now about how the Quran, in my faham at least, and quite a few others, it's got nothing to do with the language called Arab. However, we find it very hard to shed the superiority of the Arabs, or somehow, with respect. Again, I'm not pointing to anybody or any race. I don't think people are necessarily good or bad, but Arabs don't have superiority just because they happen to speak a lehja that has a few more words in common with the Quran than our languages, Urdu and Hindi. We have also Quranic words we use in our dialects, just as Shamiya does. They do more, we do less. They're not Arabic in the same way we're not Arabic. But if they are, then we are as well, just to different end of the spectrum. This is an interesting topic from a linguistic perspective that I won't get into now. But what I found really ironic, brother or sister Arab, and I'm not pointing again at you, is we find ourselves associating ourselves with the Arabic culture, the Arabic tradition, the Arabic. Again, it's not bad. People like history. Some people like Greek history or Byzantine artifacts. To each their own. But if we are calling ourselves, if you're using names for ourselves based upon Shan is glory of the Arabs, as is the brother sister's name, that is quite strange to me, because if there's glory to be talked about, it's the glory of Allah and His message. So if I were you, if I had to do something, I'd be talking about the Islamic Shan or Islami Shan, the Shan of the Islam, not the religion, but the message that is more important, and not the race, because the race has no bearing whatsoever on what we do, none whatsoever. But the question that this person asked, just in passing, because it is the day about Isra and Mi'raj, well, there's nothing about that in the Quran whatsoever. The Quran does not talk about any masjid in Al-Quds, Jerusalem. It's got that place of ritual worship has got nothing to do, in my faham, with the Quran. There's nothing that the Quran says about it. There's no Isra, there's no Mi'raj, there's no flying of anybody on any animal of whatever form and shape to any number of physical heavens. And then there's especially no negotiation whatsoever between Allah, Nabi Muhammad and Nabi Musa, where they constantly go through and argue and negotiate down 50 prayers down to 5. There's nothing like that in the Quran. All of this is, with respect to those who want to believe on it, well, this has got nothing to do with the Islam of the Quran. Islam that Nabi Muhammad followed, that is not it. Let's take a quick break as I grab some water, and I'll have a look at the comments as well. Okay. All right, let's continue. ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى. So again, Dr. Iqbal really likes to say this ayat. The Quran has not been sent to make you suffer. So for those, and this is me sometimes, you know you're there. You kind of can feel where you should be going, but you either are not quite there yet, or you don't have the time because that we are humans. Life happens, or you need to do more tadabbur or more tafakkur, and then you say, well, Quran is there. This is not there to make you suffer. It is not there for you to be put into grief. I don't get it. I need to do something, etc. You don't have to do that. You don't have to put pressure on you. We all have our nufus. Again, there's no ruh. There's no ruh. Spirit, soul is. There's a Christian concept, nothing to do with the Quran. We all have nafs, nufus, anfus. Our nafs they are the ones, they are the beings, they are us. These are receptors of our personalities. The Quran was not sent to make that suffer. This Quran is but a tazkira for those who wish to understand, for those who are moved by this tazkira. So does the Quran bring any radical ideas that we all don't already know in our hearts? I'd be surprised if I said yes to that. I don't think that's the case. The Quran is a dhikr, isn't it? It's a tazkira as per this ayah. It's a reminder. And this is something that I find quite interesting. It unambiguously, clearly continues to talk about itself as a reminder for others and even those who pass this on as reminders to others, because we all in our heart, well, how do I remind you of something if you don't know it already? Yeah. So the Quran is a reminder because you and I, we all in our nufus, in ourselves, we already know what is the right thing. The Quran is not teaching you something new. It is there reminding you. And this is the message that has always been the case. Not rituals, not a certain way of standing up and down and doing orchestrated body movements, but more a reminder. And this ayah has been, I would say, grossly misappropriated into something completely different. People are finding, well, there is a whole school of thought, a school of knowledge, as they say, sciences, based upon, well, medicinal science, a field of medicinal science based upon what the Prophet used to do, based upon those ahadith al-makdhuba, al-maz'uma, those riwayat and those traditions ascribed to Rasul Muhammad incorrectly, in which he did this or that to cure disease, etc. There's a whole group of people who make money out of this. And there's a group of people who do the same with the Quran. So instead of taking this meaning of this ayah, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ, to be, we send in this Quran healing and mercy for the mu'mineen, as in, this is the message. If you were to follow, this is what gives you healing, shifa. Let's just stay there, right? Shifa. This is what gives you, cures your mind. Quran does not talk to the body, does it? Quran talks to the mind. Quran talks to the nafs. In the nafs, whenever there's corruption and we follow the Quran, it is dhikr, is reminder. It clears that. This is what's being talked about. But instead, sticking to level 1 meaning, by a certain group of people who would much rather sell their medicines to you in the name of Allah, people, at least in Pakistan, I don't know about others, we find people writing down ayat of the Quran on pieces of paper, putting them in water, letting that kind of dissipate in there, and then drinking that water in a specific standard way as well. Don't know if this happens in India or any other parts of the world. I did have a brother from Ghana, and he would talk about it all the time, about some of the very interesting traditions that they did in the name of Quran that had nothing to do with that or Islam. But anyway, I think this is, again, quite an interesting ayah of the Quran where you can take it very, very incorrectly if you stay within the level 1 and you say, nope, I'm not going to go use my mind. I'm going to say shifa means ilaj, it means cure, physical cure, and it means medicine for when I've got cancer. So we've got a whole group of people either using the Quran to take out demons, ruqya, taking out demons from you. When the jinn comes into your body, they're using the Quran to do that, or to cure all sorts of illnesses and making money out of it. What a sad thing we made of the Quran. No wonder the Rasul, as per the other ayah we say, said that my people have left the Quran. They have walked away from it. Have you walked away? Somebody might say, no, we haven't. We are drinking it. Well, the drinking wasn't meant to be in a glass of water. The drinking was meant to clear your soul. You took it completely the wrong way. وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ, and we have explained in this Quran in many different ways. لِيَذَّكَّرُوا, and same thing, so that you remember. وَمَا يَزِيدُهُمْ إِلَّا نَفُورًا. But it still adds them, it makes them strengthened in their rebellion. Again, في هذا القرآن. It doesn't say وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا فِي هَذَا القرآن وسنة نبي محمد أو في سنة هذا الشخص إلى آخره. It doesn't say anything like that. It's clear. I don't understand how and why we want to keep adding things to the Quran. And this is an interesting ayah. Again, this is an interesting one. People say, when we read the Quran, recite the Quran, you have to say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم before we start. I have no problems in saying that. I think it's a good tradition. But to say this is what Allah says based upon this ayah, again, I think de-emphasizes the message of the Quran and the azamat and the greatness and the glory of it. Whenever you not read, whenever you ponder the Quran, whenever you try and understand the Quran, and through the Quran, the ayat of the al-kawn, of the universe, when you apply this, whenever you really focus on it, because qira'ah is not just reading, it's far more than that. Fasta'idh billah, then seek refuge from Allah, min ash-shaytan ar-rajim, then focus, then clear your mind from all evil influences. Focus, in other words. When I talk to my children, my two kids, boy and a girl, whenever I say, I'm constantly saying, son, daughter, focus. Get yourself free, rid yourself of all of these negative things. Don't whine, don't complain, just get on with it. Isn't this what the ayah is saying? Isn't this what the message says to the Quran as well? Again, is this a radically new idea? No. Why is the ayah there? It's dhikr. It's a reminder to us. It's there to make sure we don't forget the basics that we all know in our hearts. This is the ayah that I saw in the comment come up before. نحن نقص عليك أحسن القصص بما أوحينا إليك هذا القرآن. We certainly give you the most accurate qasas, history, stories, tales, for ibrah, for taking away lessons, with what we sent to you in this Quran. This Quran, that's it. Nabi Muhammad, Rasul Muhammad, in his capacity as a Rasul of Allah, brought nothing except this Quran, which we have, which we cannot be happy with. وَإِن كُنْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ لَمِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. And you were before this in the group of the Ghafilun. How? Is it because you did not know how to do the prayer? No, because you had forgotten the dhikr part of the Al-Kitab. You didn't know what you should have been doing because of what you saw your others do, for example. Quran acted as a reminder. So again, for those who are not happy with the Quran, and there are a lot of them, we have people come in and talk about it all the time. وَإِذَا تُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتُنَا بَيِّنَاتٍ. Whenever a clear ayat are explained to them, are recited to them, are given to them one after the other, those that clarify, those that make things easier, explain things. قَالَ الَّذِينَ لَا يَرْجُونَ لِقَاءَنَا. Those who do not hope for meeting with us, what do they say? ائْتِ بِقُرْآنٍ غَيْرِ هَذَا أَوْ بَدِّلْهُ. Come with a Quran that's different. We don't like it. Change it. Take this out. Take that out. I don't like this particular ayah. I don't like that particular ayah. And a lot of people do that. And I'm surprised by those who get to the point of believing the Quran, but yet not being happy with certain parts of it. It's okay to question, by the way. I'm not saying you just turn on the blinkers and stop your mind. This is an un-Quranic principle. What I'm saying is we should ponder and think instead of going to the other extreme straight away and say, nope, let's check this out. Let's check that out. That's not right because you don't understand it or you don't like what it says, perhaps. In it, I'll skip this part. Let's go to this one, conscious of time. In attabi'u illa ma yuha ilay. I only follow what is revealed to me. What is revealed to Rasul Muhammad? Hada al-Quran. This Quran. This is what's being talked about. Nothing else. Are we happy today? How many of us will be happy because we're not talking about other people or their alleged stories or tales, etc., etc.? I don't know how many of those, maybe not many today, but there will be a few down the track. This I know from my experience. وَإِذَا قُرِيَ الْقُرْآنِ, when the Quran is spoken out, recited, explained, discussed, its findings addressed, etc. فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Then pay attention to it. Then focus so that you may experience the mercy that you're meant to get. Rahmah, mercy from the Rahim, comes to you if you are to pay attention. As we talked with one of the brothers before, there is guidance for those who wish to receive guidance. For those who wish to reject it, there is rejection for them. There is, well, they will not be on the path. Last three ayah, and then I'll will get to the conclusion of our session today. قل, and this is what I'm doing to you, in front of you. أي شيء أكبر شهادة. What is the best shahada? What is the most solemn? What is the biggest shahada, witness, testimony that I could give? قل, say, order to me, to you. Allahu shahidun bayni wa baynakum. Allah is a shaheed. Again, shaheed's got nothing to do with people who die in a battle. Allah is a shaheed. He's a witness between me and between you all. وَأُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ, and was sent to me this Quran. This is the important part. لِأُنذِرَكُمْ بِهِ وَمَنْ بَلَغَ. So I could warn you all with it. Be he, not bihima, as in Al-Quran and another thing, or be her, or be him, these things, one thing, Al-Quran, with its constant focus on getting our minds clear, ourselves, getting rid of the pollution that creeps up over time. That is what the message of the Quran is. That is what was used by Rasul Muhammad, Nabi Muhammad, to become a warner with, and that's all he did, and that's all we are meant to do as well. People don't like it, so be it. It's up to them. It's not my job, it's not your job, it's not anybody's job to do anything about it. This is again a very famous ayah. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Do they not ponder the Quran? وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ. Again, for those who are not happy with the Quran, if they're honest, I don't know their hearts. If they are honest, if you're honest, if you were to ponder, you will find لَوَجُدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. If this was not from Allah, you would have found a lot of problems. You would have found discrepancy. Do you find it? Do you really find it? Or are you once more swayed by whatever literature you have been taught, or you much rather hold on to than give up, unlearn, and start from scratch? That is not an easy part. And this is the last ayah, and I will stop on that ayah. وَإِذَا قُرِيَ عَلَيْهِمْ الْقُرْآنِ. And whenever the Al-Quran is mentioned to them, recited to them, presented to them, explained to them, لا يسجدون. Again, such that has got nothing to do with bowing down, nothing to do with that. I've talked about this in the series on Salat. Such that ruku are not ritual bodily movements. Such that is to adhere to what Allah says and start following, carrying out those commandments to the best of ability. Whenever the Quran is talked about, mentioned, and we've been doing this today, لا يسجدون. They do not start following it. They do not give in. They do not give up. They continue to be on the path, or whatever path, whichever person there was, there is, there will be. They do not walk away from them on the path of Allah, the path that Nabi Muhammad followed and all those before him followed. So yeah, I think these were some of very interesting ayat of the Quran that talk about what the Quran says about itself, what it expects its followers to do, and how far are we from those ayat? As I continue to say, in accordance to Allah, every nafs again, not ruh, every nafs, all of ourselves, we know ourselves best, don't we? Are you being honest to yourself? I can't answer. You have to answer that for yourself. Okay, I'll have a quick look at the comment. I will give one last shout out to anybody who wants to come to have a final chat. 1 second. And I also realized that whilst this particular method of talking is quite popular in the Urdu Hindi world. It's still not in vogue in the English world, not in the Arabic world. People are still talking on the olden way, going on YouTube. So it's strange to see a link in the fact that you're being said you can just join straight away by. So it's something new, and I know there's some apprehension, etc. So if that is what's holding you back, I understand that. But hopefully you'll find the time, the courage to come and talk and come and share. Something we've said this quite a few times in our Urdu chats. Would much rather hear from people and not constantly be the ones talking, having this one-way conversation. I don't think, well, this is not me. This doesn't work for us. So whilst I wait for the last few people, well, anybody who wants to come. I know there's one brother already in the back studio. So yes, Brother Munaf, I will talk to you once we finish. All right, let me have a quick look at the comments. If there was anything else. Yeah, for those people who are listening now, did you have any questions, any queries? 1 second, I'll just put myself on mute for 1 second. Think about anything that you want to say in the meantime, guys. Any points to any of the ayat we covered, anything to the topic? There were many questions raised. If you had an answer, a point, a rejoiner, have a think, and I'll be back in just 1 sec. Right, okay, let's me go through the comments. I, once more, have missed quite a few, so apologies if you had written something that I did not see before. If you want to copy paste that now before we end up, that would be awesome. Brother Mukhtar, you have quite a few comments. Not easy ones to answer, so I'll apologize and say they are kind of out of the topic for today. Again, if there's interest, we in Urdu Hindi normally sometimes do have open chit chats where there's no topic. We just come in and have a talk, but we don't need to obviously have demand for that. For people to want to come, for us to be able to do that and host that. Okay, so Brother Sila Beats. Okay, what I'm experiencing with all the people. I'm guessing your comment came in when I was talking about the ayat of the Quran not being enough as a warning to people. So no matter what you say or do, those who don't want to understand it will not understand it. And if that is what you responded to, my experience and advice always is, don't bother, don't waste your time. You could spend all the time in the world and not get anywhere. For someone who does not want to understand, is it a purely Quranic thing? No. If a student does not wish to learn algebra or a certain equation, no matter what you do, they won't get it. So it's the same principle. Okay. So you had another question. So I wished you had written this in Arabic because it's very hard for me to read Romanized Arabic and try and guess what is being said. But Masih, you had another comment. Mukhtar. Yeah, that's a very interesting point the brother has made. Yes, and we saw this in the word Arabic before, Arabian. So what he's saying is translators, when they translate, they don't translate the Arabic words, or they make them capitalized. And the impression that's given is we don't need to translate this. And I see there's another comment by Salah as well about Siyam. So the perception that's given is, hey, we all know what that means, don't we? Siyam, everybody knows is fasting. We're just going to write Saum or Siyam, or we're just going to, for example, go and write the word Arabic, and everybody who just knows Arabic is the language of people. Yeah, easy peasy. But that's not service. I'm not pointing to people. I think we all have blinkers at times. We are all humans. We all make mistakes. But this is a huge problem. So by having a preconceived idea given, that is completely wrong. But Asal, what is Siyam? I'll talk about it one day. I've said this in the Urdu video before that I don't do this for money. I don't do this for shuhra or for getting famous. I only talk about topics that I like talking about. And if you've seen some of my videos, you would hopefully appreciate it takes a lot of time and effort. So I'm not interested in that topic because a lot of people have already done very good job on what that is. Whatever that is obviously not it's not imtinar, it's not stopping away from eating or drinking. That's not the Quran. The Quran, to me, in my understanding, does not speak to the body at all. Brother Arab, brother sister Arab, you are in. I'll just take you for 1 second. And Brother Reddy said, these ayat are so clear, I struggle to understand why people still insist to add to it. Indeed. I mean, I read these ayat, I remind myself sometimes and go, Musa, these are pretty clear. These are pretty clear. You're not, well, people just don't want to get it. So people don't want to get it. Brother Farooq, interesting question. Do native speakers have unfair advantages in understanding Quran that we non-people don't have? I don't think so. I think they've got... Do I talk about it? Okay, give me a second. I'll bring up that ayah that I talked about today with my friend who's from Egypt, as we were talking about the Quran. I'll just... 1 second. I'll just bring that ayah up. And I'm not talking about the topic at all today because that will completely sidetrack it. But I just think it's such an interesting point that you raised. Okay, I'll share the screen. All right, so this ayah here, apparently it is said, they argue, they say, that the Quran makes haram mithliya, or homosexuality. Quran does not allow for it. And the people of Lut were engaged in a homosexual behavior, sodomy. Again, a Christian concept, biblical concept that's been imposed onto Quran. And this was the ayah that this ayah comes in two different, this particular part comes up twice. إِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ شَهْوَةً مِنْ دُونِ النِّسَاءِ. I talked to my Arab friend just today on this ayah, and I said, now again, to your point, Brother Farooq, he's an Arab. He is actually, he taught Arabic and Islamiyat in two children in his city, Iskandaria, Alexandria. He taught them. He is an Arabic teacher for foreigners. So people, when they go from Korea, China, etc., he is their teacher. He knows Arabic. He reads Arabic. He is as good as an educated Arab that you'll find today. And this is also a sad reality that most Arabs today do not speak, understand Fusha, not even Quranic Arabic is something else. But I talked to him about this ayah and I said, La ta'tuna. I'm just giving an idea and I won't go too much into detail. La ta'tuna ar-rijala. Ta'tuna, if we take that to be ja'a, they come, surely they come. Innakum, you, la ta'tuna, you come, ar-rijala, you come to the ar-rijal. Where, in this particular term, would you ever find the word sex? Or innakum tujami'un, you try or you want to do jima or have intercourse with men. Shahwatan. Shahwa, I talked to him, not use the Quran to say, shahwa has got nothing to do with any sexual desire. It's got nothing to do with it. Because the Quran itself says, to bring up, just to make the point, something I covered in the Urdu video as well, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. So if we say shahwat, it comes from, it's a sexual desire. And if you say nisa are women, which I don't think they are, but okay, you understand this part. So people, men and women, have the desire of sexual desires from women. There's a problem already. You're saying women also have these desires from women because they are part of Nas. But they also have these desires from Banin, which they translate as children. وَالْقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنْطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ. And they also have the same desires of sex from gold and silver. It doesn't make sense. وَالْخَيْلِ, and animals. It's not what the Quran is talking. Shahwa is not that. So the more we talked, the more he said, and in the end, the conclusion that we got to was that he would go away and have a think about this ayah, and I've lost that ayah now. But he could see the point that this ayah, and another point, min dun nisa. So the point that I raised was, is in other words, is the problem that you are lusting after men except for women, as in if you were to do the lusting part for men and women, then that would be okay. There are a lot of holes. There are a lot of problems with the traditional narrative that we built up on. It just doesn't match up. So to get to the point of what you asked, Are the traditional Arabs better off than us because they speak Arabic? I don't know. I don't think so. I follow these Arabic. I follow Arabic quite a bit as well. I've got a lot of people that I talk to, I speak to, I follow them. I look at the comments there. I'm on their WhatsApp groups, etc. We chat, we converse. They themselves struggle with the Quran as much as we do, if not more. And that is because for them, even basic words like rijal is always men, because they use rijal as men. Quran does not use rijal as men. I've talked about this. I've got a whole series in Urdu about gender and how Quran uses gender in a different way. Well, Quran does not use gender at all. Rijal are not just men. They can be women. Nisa are not just women. They can be men as well. But for those who have been brought up that these words mean this, and that they don't match those in the Quran, it's a bigger challenge for them to unlearn than for us. So in a way, you could say that they have a leg up on you. But in other words, I would say they are more disadvantaged. They're more challenged than you and I as well. So no, I don't think so. They've got any unfair advantages, more so than you if you and he or she, an Arab, were to spend the same amount of time. I don't think there's much difference. Brother Sel. Yeah, that's a very interesting point. So I think it's more important that we apply the Quran on our lives versus getting into our ivory towers and just staying in there. Okay, I think Brother Arab Shah, you were there before. Sister, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? Arab Shan, do you hear me? Okay, 1, 2. Okay, I will remove you from this. Okay, all right. I will ask for last comments from anybody. And have a quick last look at anything that I might have missed. If not, then we will be pretty much finishing on point. Just as I said, 2 hours. We'll try and finish under that limit. Yes, this is an interesting one indeed, Brother Sal. Who was Ar-Rahman? Well, the Arabs of the time of Rasul Muhammad did not know. Isn't this amazing? They did not know who Ar-Rahman was. This is what the Quran says. So if we are to take our understandings of the Quran, yeah, if we are to stick to the Quran and see what the people of that time understood as the Quran, we find this quite problematic. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ أُسْجُدُوا لِلرَّحْمَنِ. And when it is said to them, who are them? These are the people who were around Rasul Muhammad. When it was said to them, Usjudu li-Rahman, and Rahman is not merciful, Rahman is bigger than that. What did they say? Wama ar-Rahman. Who is this ar-Rahman? What are you talking about? Who is this entity that we don't know? So it's quite remarkable, I would say, that people in the time of Rasul Muhammad did not understand the Quranic message unless they wanted to listen to it, unless they wanted to have this change the worldview. It was not, they had to unlearn as well, just as we have to unlearn. But what we have done is we have said, no, we'll take whatever this generation's following 3 generations did and said about the Quran, and we're going to stop right there. No matter what Israeliyat they took from the Jews that they were who were in the area, no matter what they took from Bani Umayyah's Christian heritage, no matter all the biblical stuff that got put onto the Quran, we take it very proudly, and we say we're going to understand the Quran through that. But we forget that the very people that the Rasul was talking to did not understand who the Ar-Rahman was. Isn't that remarkable? Isn't that amazing? Okay, so that was a very good point, Brother Sal. I had forgotten to bring that ayah. Okay, I think, yes, Brother Brainiac, today has been an English video, and I apologize to those who are purely English that sometimes I don't know if I spoke much in Urdu Hindi. I tried not to, but it is hard to try and balance both of these audiences. But I'm hoping that we'll continue to do justice. Okay, I will stop the closing. And in the end, as I always say, I personally, I can only talk about myself. I'm just a student of the Quran, no more, no less. And this was a live chat. I may have made mistakes. And if so, I hope that you'll understand that this is the nature of talking live, that people do make mistakes. But if there was something that I was deliberately wrong on, or I could do with some guidance or correction, well, I would really appreciate, and like if you were to correct me, that would be awesome. And as is the standard tradition out here, just as we are about to wrap up, somebody dials in. It's something that happens quite a bit in Urdu. Brother Farooq, Assalamu alaikum. Do you hear me?
Walaikum salam. Yes, brother. So I had a question that how do you suggest for us to learn Quranic Arabic? What should be the approach for us?
Okay, you speak Urdu or Hindi, I guess, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done a video called Quran Kaise Samjhe. Myself and Dr. Iqbal talked about our journeys. Have you seen that video?
Yeah.
Have you seen that video?
Yeah, I actually attended that, I think.
Okay. So if you've got any questions after that, maybe, feel free to ask. What I'll do is maybe did you have anything to talk about today's topic? If not, I'll put you in the backstage and we can talk after that.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just remove you for a second. All right. So I can see both the brothers are still there. We'll have a quick chat after this. Having a last look at the comments. Thanks for all those who were tuned in. As I said, I make mistakes. I'm a human, and I'm quite proud of that, honestly. And I will also say that my fam is constantly evolving. The more I think, the more I hear, the more I do the tadabbur. So if you find that, I don't know, over time, I'm talking about some things that I've talked about before in a deeper level, on a higher level, well, that is part of being human. And I think no one can ever say that they understand the Quran completely, nor do I say that. So with that said, hopefully we'll all keep learning. We'll all keep in touch. Until the next time, Assalamu alaikum.